Good morning, everybody. Good afternoon from wherever you might be joining us. Thank you so much for being here with us today. And it's a pleasure to welcome Ms. Nor Wang today, who's joining us all the way from Singapore. And she's been working on fantastic research about the Shakti, feminine energy, as we'll hear about today, and its manifestations in South Asia and the Himalayas. So we're very happy to welcome her today. She's working as the head of development at the Asian Civilizations Museum and at the Peranakan Museum in Singapore, where actually one of the pieces from the museum where she's working in Singapore is on display in London, where we'll be visiting the exhibition at the British Library on the Silk Road Oasis in 2 weeks' time from today, or better, 12 days' time. So if any of you are in London, you're most welcome to join us. You can see it on our website. And I won't say much more. I'll let Nor take over the talk. She'll be talking for about an hour. And at the end of the talk, she's going to welcome questions. Thank you very much. So you can keep your questions or type them in the chat for Nor to answer later. So thank you, Nor, and thank you, everybody, for joining us.
Well, thank you, Jamyang, for the introduction. And again, good morning or evening, whichever part of the world you are tuning in from. I am Nor Wang, Head of Development at the Asian Civilizations Museum, and I'm glad to be discussing the topic of divine feminine in art, inspired by my journeys in India and Bhutan. I would like to thank Dr. Jamyang Oliphant, Director of the Shangsheng Institute UK, for the opportunity to speak here. And my gratitude also goes to my journey guides, Dr. Ian Baker, Tiffany Gyatso, and Ganev Rajkoshia. And thank you all for tuning in as well. Now, before we begin, I would like to say that I'm not a specialist in this field. Neither am I a practitioner of Vajrayana or Hinduism. Rather, my talk today comes from a visual and historical perspective, which is connected to the work that I do at the museum, where I spend a lot of time looking, thinking, and communicating such art forms from our collections to our stakeholders and the public. So I'm deeply grateful for this platform to share my experience in an expanded way beyond the museum, enriched by my visits to some of its localities and with a new audience as well. Okay, so first allow me to share how my journey into this art form began at this museum. So I come from the contemporary art world, which defined much of my earlier career, and moving into the world of antiquities was a refreshing change, for it exposed me to centuries-old ideas that shape our visual culture today. And it started with these two striking goddesses from our collection, currently on display in the Kwan Im Tong Hut Cho Temple Gallery, which is named after one of Singapore's oldest Buddhist temples dedicated to Avalokiteshvara, or Kuan Yin, known as the goddess of compassion. So seen here are the, first off is the goddess, Hindu goddess Chamunda, and this is a 10th century sandstone sculpture from Madhya Pradesh. And what we could make out of it is she's dances blood drunk on a corpse, holding a skull cup and picking flesh from her teeth. A flayed elephant forms her halo. Chamunda is known as a manifestation of Durga, symbolizing protection and the goddess' fierce power for eradicating evil. Well, despite her ferocious form, she exudes quite an appealing mix of athletic and artistic agility, perhaps that of a dancer. And from the Buddhist world, this is Simha Bhaktra, an 18th century gilded bronze sculpture of the lion-faced wisdom Dakini from Vajrayana Buddhism. And now she's known to stride over seas of blood, holding a flaying knife and wearing freshly flayed human skin. And you can see like it's tied around her neck there, symbolizing the peeling away of illusions to reveal ultimate reality. Like Chamunda, she's a protector. So these goddesses somewhat challenged my early notions of feminine divinity, shifting what is commonly seen as perhaps like nurturing motherly figures to dynamic forces of power. And their bold representations sparked my curiosity, leading me to explore, what are the forces shaping Shakti? And this search has brought me to India and Bhutan to uncover the many ways Shakti manifests in art. Why don't we start with the concept of Shakti before that will inform a lot of our reading of the art pieces. So the concept of Shakti is believed to have originated from a strong matriarchal society in pre-Aryan India. Almost 5,000 years ago, the Earth Mother, worshipped in India since ancient times, symbolizes nurturing and fertility. And this highlights the importance of feminine energy in providing life, sustenance, and power to humanity. So Shakti means power, the life-giving energy that represents the primal creative principle underlying the cosmos that manifests the universe. And here are some key examples of Shakti manifested into art forms. What you see here first is a sculpture of the supreme warrior goddess Durga from the Hindu tradition. And she was born out from the combined energies of many gods during a long drawn out battle with the Asuras, or demigod demons. Embodying the collective energies of the gods, she was created to slay the buffalo demon, Mahishasura, as depicted here. And popular in both Buddhist and Hindu traditions, this is Tara, who serves as an equally powerful symbol of Shakti and somewhat equivalent to Durga in terms of status and divinity. And she's also considered to be one of the 10 Mahavidyas, which are the group of tantric goddesses. She's usually associated with compassion, protection, and the dynamic energy of enlightenment. So together, Durga and Tara exemplifies Shakti's universal practice, or rather presence, as generative, active, protective, and as dynamic life-giving forces. Now, as we explore the rich traditions of Shakti art, I'll begin with an overview of its representations in Hindu and Buddhist cultures. This is a broad overview highlighting some of the more recognizable deity art forms. While this is not an exhaustive mapping of all the female deities, I hope it provides a visual reference into the commonalities and contrasts between both traditions. In the Hindu world, Shakti represents a divine feminine energy central to creation, preservation, and destruction. It's known to be rooted in Vedic and Puranic traditions, where Shakti manifests as powerful goddesses such as Durga, Kali, Sarasvati, and Lakshmi. And they are known to embody cosmic power, wisdom, and abundance, often depicted in temple sculptures, intricate paintings, and ritualistic art forms such as Rangoli and Yantras. Shakti's narratives, like Durga's triumph over the buffalo demon, are celebrated through festivals such as Navarti, again highlighting her cyclical role in the cosmos. And in the Buddhist world, Shakti is woven into Vajrayana Buddhism, where feminine energy symbolizes wisdom, which is prajna, and complements skillful means, upaya. And we have female deities such as Tara, Prajna Paramita, Dakini, and Vajrayogini, and they are known to embody compassion, enlightenment, and esoteric power. They appear in Thangka paintings, bronze sculptures, and mandalas used in meditative and tantric practices. revered especially in the Himalayan regions like Tibet and Bhutan. Shakti, art in Buddhism, I have come to understand, merges artistry with meditational practices to guide practitioners. So I hope this comparative overview allows us to see how both traditions honor feminine power, though expressed differently, one through mythic narratives and cyclical cosmology, whereby the other is through meditative and transcendent paths. And there are some apparent contrasts and commonalities just by looking at the art. Say, for example, in the first row, we have Kali and Vajrayana, and they share similar standing stances, dynamic poses. They have a garland of skulls around their neck. And in the next row, we just look at Sarasvati and Dakini. Though they come from different realms, both are holding stringed musical instruments. And there are also recognizable visual elements that are present in both realms. For example, that of the lotus. In the Hindu realm, it's associated with the lotus goddess Lakshmi, for she is of the primordial waters and wife of Vishnu. And meanwhile, in the Buddhist world, it's symbolic of purity and enlightenment. So from a mapping of Shakti art, I wish to bring your attention to another kind of mapping, and that is how Shakti is mapped as worship sites in the Himalayas, specifically India and Bhutan. So first you see a mapping of the Shakti Peethas, and these are sacred sites across the Indian subcontinent. Its origin is rooted in the Hindu narrative based on Sati's dismembered body parts that have fell onto earth, where such energy sites emerged and considered centers of Shaktism that serve as pilgrimage destinations. And prominent examples include Kamakya Temple in Assam and Kalighat Temple in West Bengal. Beyond India, Shakti Peethas are found in Bangladesh, Nepal, Pakistan, and Sri Lanka. And to get an idea of feminine mapping in the Vajrayana world, here I have a 20th century painting titled Demoness of Tibet from the Rubin Museum collection. And what is seen here is an outline of a woman, the demoness whose body is embedded within the Himalayan landscape. The story of the demoness or Himalayan ogress originates with the Chinese Princess Wencheng, who is the wife of Tibetan Emperor Songtsen Gampo. And her divination revealed that the Himalayan geography resembled the body of a demoness. And to neutralize the demoness, Songtsen Gampo then built 12 temples to anchor her limbs and key points. And Bhutan, these are Jambi Lakang, which mark the left knee, and Kirchu Lakang, that mark the left foot. And circled here are the two key places I have visited, which are the Shakti Peetha Kamakya Temple in Assam and Jambi Lakang in Bumtang Valley, Bhutan. And I shall share more in the latest slides. But some conclusive observations. While the Shakti Peethas seems to be celebrating feminine energy as a source of creation and cosmic power, the Himalayan demoness portrays feminine energy as primal and untamed, somewhat like a wild force that requires harmonization. But both traditions recognize that the land is imbued with feminine power, yet they interpret and engage with this energy differently. So one is through reverence and worship, and the other is, through temperament and transformation. And another similar phenomena to note is that the Shakti Peethas are widely regarded as 108 sacred sites. Similarly, later histories also talk about 108 temples founded by Songtsen Gampo, and the number 108 is also a common Buddhist numerical metaphor. So before going to specific destinations, I like to open a window into how my journey that began in India led me to Bhutan. So here is the Temple of Kamakya, regarded as the most potent Shakti Pita. And it's located on a hilltop, and the temple offers a stunning view of the Brahmaputra River below. And beyond it are the majestic hills of Bhutan. So standing there and gazing across the river to the distant hills, I felt as if the landscape itself was charting my next steps, a sign, like almost a road map pointing me towards Bhutan. And indeed, a year later, I found myself there, continuing my explorations of Shakti in this Himalayan kingdom. And this is a picture of me in Bhutan at the 14th century Jangsalakang, which was my first temple visit there. So starting off in India, this is the temple of Kamakya, located in Guwahati on the bank of the Brahmaputra River in northeast India. It is an important site of goddess worship in South Asia dating back to the 8th century. Sati's yoni in its aniconic form is enshrined within the temple, naming Kamakya a powerful seat of worship. The Devi Bhagavata Purana from the 11th to 12th centuries extols its significance, stating that Kamakya Yoni Mandala has no second in reflecting her glory. And the site has served as a important religious and political center for several dynasties, including the Pala from the 10th to 12th centuries, the Koch from the 16th to 7th centuries, and the Ahom from the 17th to 18th centuries. And the present temple structure dates back to 16th century Koch period. The worship of Shakti at this site originates from the legend of Sati, who is the wife of Shiva and daughter of god king Daksha. So the story is Daksha disapproved of Sati's marriage to Shiva, leading to a tragedy where Sati jumped into a fire pit during a ritual Daksha was hosting. And this act caused Shiva so much grief and rage that he carried his wife's dead body and began his Tandava, the dance of cosmic destruction. Fearing Shiva's destructive dance will destroy the universe, Vishnu intervened with his discus to cut Sati's body into pieces, and that scattered over 100 places and fell onto earth, and therefore known as the Shakti Pitas or seats of power. Kamakya marks the site where Sati's yoni fell, sanctifying the hill and inspiring the temple's construction. And shown here is a painting of Sati by Nandala Bose, a key artistic figure in the Bengal School of Art who advocated Indian heritage as part of the Indian nationalist movement for self-determination against colonizing forces. And I wanted to show this work of art for an artistic perspective on Sati's self-sacrifice, whereby its mesmerizing and haunting beauty has quite an evocative effect as we reflect on the temple's story and significance. So here we are in the inner sanctum. So what happens is that devotees often wait an entire day to enter Kamakya's inner sanctum, thus making my visit, thankfully during its non-peak period, a rare privilege. So the yoni is located in the inner sanctum of the temple, and it takes a form of a fissure in a large rock, often filled with water from an underground spring, and worship as the goddess in her manifestation as Kamakya. So the peak pilgrimage period is in June, when the Ambuvachi Mela, the rain festival, celebrates the goddess's annual menstrual flow, and thus symbolizing the earth's renewal and therefore turnover of fertility. And during this monsoon season festival, water from the underground spring, which is rich with iron oxide, flows over this rock yoni, alluding to the goddess menstruating. And the Brahmaputra River, which we've seen earlier in one of my earlier slides, is known to turn red during this monsoon, thus mirroring this natural phenomena. Kamakya is one of the oldest centers of tantric practice and the site where early tantric texts, including the Kalika Purana, which is an ancient Hindu text related to the goddess Kali, were written. Tantra encompasses teachings aimed at connecting with divine, often through goddess worship or Shakti worship. And power is harnessed through esoteric rituals, sometimes involving taboo substances like menstrual blood, which is seen as both potent and transgressive. And this connection is vividly conveyed through this sculpture of the goddess Laja Gauri. And she is depicted here in a birthing position, symbolizing the life-giving power of the yoni. At Kamakya, devotees anoint her pupillum with red pigment or sindoor as a symbol of, or rather a gesture of fertility and creative energy. Historians suggest that Laja Gauri is seen as a tantric deity related to the life cycles of the yoni or womb that then aligns with Kamakya's temple significance to Assam's monsoon season and thus its agricultural renewal. Meanwhile, it is also known that Brahmanical orthodoxy associates menstruation with impurity and taboo, but yet Tantra inverts these values, transforming impure substances into sacred energy. And the commissioning of figures like Laja Gauri may have symbolized the Pala's kingdom's invocation of this transformative power of practice for protection and prosperity. So next up is Kalinjar Fort, and this is located in the Bundelkhand region in Uttar Pradesh. And it stands on an isolated flat top hill at an altitude of approximately 400 meters. And the significance of this fortress city is mirrored by its complex history, replete with battles and invasions, and it was ruled by several dynasties as early as the Guptas from the 4th century, right to the Vadanas, the Chandelas, the Mughals from the 15th to 18th century who have reigned here the longest, and the Marathas, known as the early modern Indian Empire that controlled large portions of India in the 18th century. Early mentions of Kalinjar have been found in the Mahabharata, that's an epic poem from the 4th century, and the travelogues of Buddha. And inside are several structures such as palaces, temples, mosques, and sculptural remains. And the most prominent structure here is the fort, in the fort, and it's known as the Nilkant Temple. And according to ancient Hindu texts, Lord Shiva took refuge here to cool off after defeating Kal, which means time, by consuming poison after Samudra Matan, the churning of the sea to save the world. And it turned his throat blue, thus the name Nilkant, blue-throated. And the temple is still active here after 1,000 years. And speaking of Lord Shiva, this is an 8-meter tall rock-cut sculpture of his avatar, Kal Bhairava, which is associated with annihilation. And here I wish to focus on the life-size rock-cut sculpture of Kali. And she is seen as a state of wild dancing with a garland of skulls and wielding an assortment of weapons. Unfortunately, it seems like her face has been hacked off, probably due to the battles that have happened here. Kali is said to have emanated from the brow of the great warrior goddess Durga during a battle between divine and anti-divine forces. Now, if you recall, this sacred space is dedicated to Shiva because he defeated time. Now, on the idea of time, my guess, this is probably why Kali is depicted here as well. For Kali by her name not only means black, but the term Kal means time. And she is known to be, she's known as the Mahavidya, the great wisdom to represent time, which is actually the backdrop of creation, alluding to the darkness of the cosmos or the womb, and where her dance of time is closely related to death and rebirth. I can also try to make out that the goddess is striding over a body, and Kali is known to stride over Shiva. So here is Kali as Shakti, the energy and force of activation, because without her, Shiva would remain inert and the universe would perish, right? And next up, as you descend a steep flight of stairs from the Nilkant temple, you'll see a series of rock-cut sculptures. And I wish to highlight the figure in the middle, who is the ferocious goddess Chamunda. And her name actually takes from two demons, Chanda and Munda, whom she vanquishes in a great war. Chamunda shows little ambiguity. You can see her multiple arms wielding weapons. She has a skeletal appearance, an emaciated body with an exaggerated rib cage, and her matted hair is held together by this skull encrusted headband. She is a harbinger of carnage, truly a testament of her terrifying power. So the goddesses at Kalinjar, such as Chamunda and Kali, are not merely spiritual figures, but reflections of the fortress's dramatic socio-political dynamics. For their fierce and transformative nature somewhat parallels the violent yet regenerative history of Kalinjar, a site where power has been fiercely contested. And it could be that its spiritual protectors invoke these goddesses to guard its strategic and economic significance. And through their imagery, the fort art echoes its historical role as a center of authority, resilience, and transformation. So these are just highlights from of my encounters in India, which I've covered extensively in my talk last year, which is now available on YouTube. Due to time, I'll focus on the next part of my talk on the divine feminine art in Bhutan. Right. So just to give a kind of conceptual overview, feminine representation in Buddhism, it is known in early Buddhism, feminine figures were scarcely depicted, even though women were part of Buddhist life and the Sangha. But somehow in the 8th century, when Buddhism blended with tantric traditions to form Vajrayana, the female icon became much more visible. Scholars think that Vajrayana grew out of Indian tantric traditions, which often celebrated goddesses and female figures as key to spiritual practice. And here the feminine isn't seen as lesser than the male, but perhaps it's equal and reflecting this idea of non-duality. And to introduce one of the earliest feminine art in Buddhism I've seen in Bhutan, this is a striking 7th century sculpture of Kongse Domo, a goddess sworn by Padmasambhava to protect Buddhism. And it's currently on display in Bhutan's National Museum. She is one of the 12 Tenmas, mountain goddesses of the Himalayas, and she is seated with her left leg raised holding a lotus bud believed to represent a bag of diseases that she used as weapon, and her right hand gestures as if offering a gift. Her simple yet striking jewelry, including her mismatched earrings, reminds me of Indian sculptures. And what's amazing about her is this minimalistic design has quite a timeless quality about it. And though it's from the 7th century, she does feel like a contemporary work of art. And on the other side is the Yapyum Vajrasattva, a striking representation of male-female deities in union, highly recognizable in the Vajrayana pantheon. In this depiction, the female symbolizes wisdom, while the male represents skillful means of action. And we will see more of this in my next slides. Okay. And so starting with my first temple visit in Bhutan, this is Jangsa Lakang in Paro in Western Bhutan, which stands out for its unique circular chorten, or rather shrine design. It is said to have been founded by Mahasiddha Tangtung Galpo in the 1300s, known for his great alchemical powers. This temple was built to subdue a powerful Naga spirit, and local legends tell of a black snake sliding down the hill near the temple, a shape that you could probably make out in my photo here. As you can see there. And the lakang itself is designed as a mandala with its 3 floors symbolizing hell, earth, and heaven. The temple walls are covered with paintings, probably dating from the early 19th century when Sherab Gatsen from the 1700s, late 1700s, who's known as one of the most influential Buddhist masters in Tibetan history, restored the building. The ground floor shows the art of Avalokiteshvara and Guru Rinpoche. And as you advance to the 2nd floor, you get to see deities such as Mahakala and Jambala. And on the 3rd floor are the tantric deities, where one sees greater representations of the feminine. Okay, I just gotta. All right. So here we are on the 3rd floor. And this is a striking, larger-than-life mural of Vajrayogini, a principal Dakini deity symbolizing the highest wisdom and ultimate realization in Tibetan Buddhism. And embodying transformative energy, Vajrayogini is depicted as a red, fiery figure in a bow and arrow pose, standing on figures atop a lotus pedestal and a sun disk. And she holds a kartika, which is a curved knife, representing her ability to cut through illusions and attachments. On her other hand, she holds a kapala, which is a skull cup that could contain offerings of nectar or blood, symbolizing the acceptance of all experiences required for transformation. Now, she is a sight to behold, with golden rays emanating from her body and framed by a flaming mandala. She's naked except for her jewelry, a garland of severed heads, and a long flowing scarf. Her dynamic pose and fierce expression reflect her power to overcome ignorance and guide practitioners on the path to spiritual liberation. And to show more examples of such art forms from Bhutan, on the right is Vajravarahi, and this is an 18th century reproduction from the Swalagompa monastery in Punakha. Similar to Vajrayogini, Vajravarahi is distinguished by a soul's head extending from her own. The presence of the she-boar is understood as a sign of conquest of ignorance, which is also found in Hindu symbolism. And surrounding her are notable Vajrayana figures, including Buddha Vajrahara in blue at the top, and we see like the three Mahakala figures below. And this is He Vajra. He meaning compassion and Vajra meaning wisdom. He is depicted with 8 heads and 16 arms holding a skull cup, whereby those on the left contain animals and those on the right contain deities. So we are starting to see the figures in union. And this is his consort Nairama, and she wields a kartika, the curved knife, to cut through illusions and attachment. And their embrace symbolizes the union of compassion and wisdom, male-female energies, and therefore non-duality. Now, they are standing in a bow and arrow posture. They trample figures representing obstacles to enlightenment. And this act is akin to Vajra Yogini, signifying mastery over hindrance, again, guiding practitioners on a transformative path. Here is another variation of deities in union. This figure is of the 8-face and 12-arm chakra samvara in blue. And we are drawn to the center of this image as he holds the red Vajra Yogini in an intimate embrace while holding the Vajra and bell with crossed arms. And our attention is also drawn to the tiger skin that's draped at his waist. Chakra Samvara is known as the circle of supreme bliss, again symbolizing the union of male-female energies, the inseparability of wisdom, prajna, from method, upaya, in the non-dual nature of reality. And to show again more examples of from Bhutan, this is a 19th century tanka from the Phajoding Gonpa Monastery collection in Thimphu. Surrounding Chakra Samvara are Dakinis, again highlighting the feminine in Buddhist art. The Dakini colors signify qualities essential for meditation, which I shall explore in my later slides. No, we cannot speak about Bhutan without talking about the famous Parotaksang, known as Tiger's Nest Monastery. This is a breathtaking cliffside shrine and a key site in Tibetan Buddhist law. Before a fire in 1998, the original temple built in the 7th century, which was perched on a cliff, was along an ancient pilgrimage and trade route connecting Tibet and India. It was constructed by Bhutan's 4th Druk Desi, Tenzin Rakbe from the 1600s, and he's known as the nephew of Bhutan's founder, Zabdrung Namgyal. The most prominent figure associated with Tiger's Nest is the legendary Indian master Padmasambhava, also known as Guru Rinpoche, revered as the bringer of Tantric Buddhism to Tibet and Bhutan in the 8th century. According to legend, Padmasambhava flew here on the back of a tigress to subdue local demons. The tigress was actually the transformed manifestation of Yeshe Tsogyal, a revered female disciple from Tibet and a consort of Guru Rinpoche. And she holds a very special place in Vajrayana Buddhism. Since photography is not allowed in Tiger's Nest, I'm showing you a photographic reproduction of an 18th century painting from the site depicting a guru riding the transformed tigress, highlighting the role of the divine feminine in this sacred space. Guru Rinpoche is highly identifiable for his 2 key consorts, Yeshe Tsogyal from Tibet and Mandarava from India. And again, photography is not allowed, so I'll refer to this artifact to read the key female figures in Vajrayana artistic traditions. Mandarava is an Indian princess, and she's identifiable by her diaphanous robes, a hallmark of Indian tradition. Her right hand forms the Vitarka Mudra, a gesture of teaching, while her left holds the long life vase. Yeshe Tsogyal was the former wife of a Tibetan emperor, wears Tibetan robes. She holds a skull cup in one hand and makes a gesture of reassurance in the other. Compositionally, the sculpture stands out from the male-female union pieces I've encountered, and somehow the outward-facing couple recalls the Indic imagery of Hindu deities like Shiva and Parvati, possibly offering a perspective of Indian or Hindu influences on Vajrayana art traditions. And this artifact is from the Tamsing Lakang in Bumtang Valley, which is connected to Pema Lingpa, known as a significant treasure revealer of the Nyingma tradition. So who are these women and why are they important? So let's first focus on Yeshe Tsogyal. She was born in 757 CE to a noble Tibetan family. Is also known as the victorious Ocean of Knowledge, and she is celebrated as the mother of Tibetan Buddhism and one of its greatest teachers. Visual depictions of her are rare, therefore making this painting from the Himalayan art resource especially significant, for it portrays her as a lama or a teacher, emphasized by her prominent placement in this artistic composition. Her birth was marked by miraculous signs, but her early life was difficult. She's known to be forced into marriage, and she was later given to Emperor Trisong Detsen, but he recognized her unique qualities and allowed her to pursue her spiritual path. She became the chief disciple and consort of Guru Rinpoche, mastering esoteric tantric teachings under his guidance. And their relationship went beyond teacher and student, for they are known to co-create the Vajrayana path, with Yeshe Tsogyal known to be preserving and transmitting these teachings. Guru Rinpoche regarded her as a spiritual equals, thus solidifying her as one of Tibetan Buddhism's most influential figures. And here is the Pelpu Langkang, which is the snow lion cave, often associated with Yeshe Tsogyal, and it's just next to Tiger's Nest. And next, let's have a look at Mandarava, an Indian princess born in 727 CE in Zahor, in present-day Himachal Pradesh, India. And from a young age, she is known to show a deep commitment to spirituality, rejecting royal life and marriage to join a monastic community and taking vows as a nun. So Mandarava met Padmasambhava during his visit to Zahor and chose to become his disciple and later his consort. This decision led to severe consequences, for her father condemned them to death. It's quite a similar story to Sati, actually. However, they miraculously survived when Padmasambhava transformed the execution pyre into Rewalsa Lake, revealing their divine connection. After escaping, they traveled to Maratika Cave in present-day Nepal, a sacred site linked to longevity practices. And I believe the Maratika Cave is a highlight in an upcoming trip that the Shangcheng Institute is organizing. So there, Buddha Amitayus, symbolic of infinite life, appeared and granted them empowerment by placing a vase of long life nectar on their crowns. And this moment reflected in the depiction of Mandarava holding the long life vase, as you've seen in one of my earlier slides, therefore cementing her role as Guru's spiritual master in achieving mastery. So to conclude, what does Mandarava and Yeshe Tsogyal say? Well, for one, they both exemplify spiritual determination and empowerment in Buddhist history. Mandarava's rejection of societal norms, and Yeshe Tsogyal's pursuit of liberation highlight the strength and agency. And as equal partners to Guru Sambhava and independent teachers, they probably broke through very distinct gender barriers and inspiring women to seek autonomy and enlightenment. Both are celebrated as enlightened figures, embodying the union again of method and wisdom, and thus stand as symbols of empowerment and feminine agency. And this is Jambe Temple in Bhutan, and it gets its name from the main statue Maitreya, the Buddha of the future, called Jampa in Tibetan. It is one of several temples built by Songtsen Gampo to subdue the demoness, and the temple houses Bhutan's oldest grand Buddhist clay sculpture of Maitreya, thus showcasing its deep historical and spiritual importance. And on the temple grounds, you will notice the circle markings where the Jambe Lakang Druk Festival is held every November. The festival features the sacred tercham, or naked dance, which is performed by males to subdue a demoness who once tried to hinder the spread of Buddhism. Dating back to the 8th century, the ritual represents the victory of spiritual forces over negativity and serves as an offering to the deities. So to understand the feminine significance of Jambe Temple, we look at the story behind the temple that intersects with the supplying demoness and the role Princess Wencheng had during the reign of Tibetan King Songtsen Gampo. So the story is under Gampo, Buddhism spread widely in Tibet, and the Tibetan Empire became a powerful force in Central Asia, rivaling that of the Chinese and the Arabs. Strategic marriage alliances were key to this rise, including his marriage to Princess Wencheng of Tang China, which is seen as a landmark diplomatic achievement. So Tibetan accounts tell how Wencheng's journey to Tibet became a geomancy revelation. For the cart carrying a Buddha statue, which was her parting gift, got stuck in the marshlands of Lhasa. Now, when the cart couldn't move, Wencheng pulled out her geometric chart and, to survey the land. And her findings revealed that Tibet lay on the body of a supine demoness stretching across the Himalayas, causing chaos and blocking Buddhism's growth. And to subdue the demoness and establish a foundation for civilization and Buddhism, 12 temples were built to pin down her vital points. And among them is Jambe Lakang, pinning her left knee, and Kirtu Lakang securing her left foot. And it's also said the cart that carried the Buddha statue with Princess Wencheng was pulled by 2 Chinese strong men who would later become the ancestors of the family to which the founder of Bhutan belonged. So the significance of Princess Wencheng, she's an early figure responsible for Chinese cultural transmission in the region. And she's also credited with introducing architectural knowledge and spreading Buddhism through Chinese artistic styles. And such influences are evident in art forms synthesizing Chinese and Tibetan aesthetics. So, for example, the Jokang Temple in Lhasa showcases Chinese architectural techniques and styles, such as the pagoda-like roofs and intricate woodwork. She's also credited with bringing the statue of Shakyamuni Buddha to Tibet, which became a central object of devotion. And the statue is known to reflect Tang Dynasty artistic elements, blending Chinese craftsmanship with Buddhist symbolism. And Wencheng's legacy, marked by her divination skills and cultural diplomacy, highlights her influence in shaping the spiritual and cultural landscape in this region. And this is Trongsa Zong. This is a bit of a change. I mean, so far we've seen temples, and Trongsa Zong is quite outstanding because this is a massive fortress in Bhutan. It was known as the seat of power over central and eastern Bhutan, where its size and strategic location allowed it to play a key role in managing the east and west trade routes in earlier times. Trongsa means a new village, and it comprises of temples, retreats, and hermitages for monks. It showcases the magnificence of Bhutanese craftsmanship as well as architecture, which you see a lot of stone stairs, alleys, and corridors connecting spaces. And despite its austerity, of Trongsa Zong, I did find a lot of vivid, colorful paintings and iconography in its interiors. So, reflecting on my journey to Bhutan, which was actually themed around wisdom dakinis, it feels fitting to conclude my reflections with this mural of the wisdom dakinis that I discover at Trongsa Zong. Now, unusually, this mural depicts 6 dakinis rather than the usual 5, which are known to represent the 5 senses. However, the Lama at the Zong explained that it's 6 here because of the 6th sense. So dakinis are known to function as meditational deities. Each has a distinct color and in some cases hold a unique object. They're quite similar in appearance with Vajrayogini, where they're depicted in dynamic dancing postures. So it's known that through meditation, as you focus on these dakinis, practitioners are then led to balance their elemental energies, transform emotional afflictions, and make some kind of spiritual progress. So each dakini is known to symbolize a specific wisdom, paired with a corresponding color and element, as you could see here in this table mapping. So for example, in the first row, the Tagata Dakini, who's the white Dakini, and you could see here in the visual, she's holding up a mirror, and therefore her object and sense would be related to sight. And her key wisdom, that of Dharma Dhatu, which is of eternal truth, correlates to her role in the practice of the purification and clarity of mind. Yeah. And the 6th Dakini right here, she offers sacred texts and therefore represents infinite wisdom. Yeah. So I'm nearly at the end of my presentation. And so far we have engaged with divine feminine art across regions and eras, uncovering key insights through both a visual and historical lens. And the imagery and narratives embedded in this sacred depictions highlight the significance of the feminine across spiritual, cultural, and political dimensions. So if I were to break it down into 3 main themes, I mean, first we've looked at embodied power and how that manifests in the various divine feminine forms. So we've seen Shakti, the universal creative power closely related to feminine energy, manifesting in the form, say, of fierce protectors such as Chamunda Kali, or as compassionate guides such as Tara and the Dakinis and Vajrayogini, or cosmic creators such as Laja Gauri. And they share similar iconographic symbols, that of the lotus, the dynamic poses. We've seen the mortality symbols such as the skull cups and garlands, and the mudras, all somewhat emphasizing this transformative power. And this energy is known to have flowed across borders And through that, we're looking at networks of influence or networks of influence and cross-cultural exchanges. So the diverse visual traditions somewhat testify to the kind of complex cross-regional and cultural connections that stretch all the way from northern India to Nepal, to Tibet, right up to the imperial center of China. And it also shows us that these key sites in India and Bhutan also exemplify the flow of trade, people, ideas, and artistic innovations as well. And Shakti influence goes beyond the divine, for through patronage and practices, we see how the worship of goddesses and the feminine deities by rulers and dynasties somewhat underscores the role of the divine feminine in shaping resilient societies. And on the second point, we are also seeing this sort of partnerships between spiritual and political lineages. If we think of Padmasambhava with Mandarava and Yeshe Tsogyal, who comes from royal lineages, as well as Songtsen Gampo and Princess Wencheng, they somewhat illustrate the interweaving of sacred authority with strategy that could have influenced the transmission of ideas and art through this wide, diverse, and influential networks. So why Shakti matters today? Well, as we've seen, feminine sacred art just isn't about aesthetic. It's a medium for thinking and transformation. And in doing so, by honoring the divine feminine, it could help us to rethink how we live. For such art could inspire us to restore balance in society, to rethink about systems that devalue women and nature, and embrace new ways of thinking that celebrate, interconnectedness, such as embracing cosmology and multiplicity as an antidote to, sort of the polarized frameworks, rigid polarized frameworks. And in a world grappling, in today's world, we hear a lot of it in the news, grappling with inequality, an environmental crisis, loss of cultural heritage. The feminine sacred art has provided us a vision of wholeness that could speak directly to such crises. And it reminds us that the solutions not lie in rigidity or domination, but rather in honoring the interdependence of all life, a lesson which ancient traditions have long encoded in their art. And with that, I would like to wrap up my presentation. Thank you all for listening, and thank you to the Shangshung Institute for bringing us together. This might be the end of today's talk, but I hope to keep the conversations going, and I hope our paths cross again in future. Yeah. So, Jean-Yang, might you want to take us through the next part?
Hi, so sorry, my connection is a little bit wobbly. I took off my video because of that. Thank you so much, Nora. Fascinating talk and such a wonderful overview also of everything. And as you say, we have had similar talks about Mandarava, which you mentioned. We do have a talk about Mandarava specifically on our YouTube archive. If you look for Shangshung UK, you can see that. And we've always given much importance to the female aspect, which unfortunately has been neglected very much with the monastic systems in the Himalayas. Somehow there's a tendency of patriarchy there. So it's very nice to see this research you're doing and all the connections between the South Asia and the Himalayas. Really fascinating. So if anybody has any questions, I'm sure Nor will be happy to answer. And also maybe you can tell us more about your future work. Maybe it's secret, I don't know, but you mentioned to me before also some of your plans, which are also very exciting. So yeah, if anybody has any questions, welcome. And thank you again.
So I'll just leave it if there are further questions before I share a little bit about what's next in store. Yeah.
Can
Well,
I
if
ask you? Yeah.
well, perhaps while others are thinking about their questions.
Okay. How was it for you engaging in all these topics, especially as a female researcher, and how did you feel? I mean, I'm sure it's just from an aesthetic point of view, it's extremely beautiful artwork, and also, as a personal sort of, it's a personal question about your research.
Yeah, so I mean, it started off visually for me, and again, when looking beyond the visual and the aesthetic, when you encounter the historical and contextual ideas behind the art forms, it's pretty fascinating. And as I mentioned, it could be an antidote to some of the issues that we're facing today. And interestingly, again, going back to my early beginnings in the contemporary art world, whereby artistic practices are often appraised using theoretical frameworks, and to learn that the feminist framework is somewhat, relevant today, but it's been a conception of, say, the 20th century. But when you encounter the Shakti art forms, you realize that the ancients have known this 5,000 years ago. And sometimes my only wish is that, as one learns art history in school, perhaps this could be something that's introduced very early in artistic education. Yeah. And as for where this would lead me on to next, just to share that I've been very fortunate to be granted a curatorial art prize here in Singapore for my project that looks at sacred art forms. Interestingly, that has been washed up on the shores of Singapore. And this is a project that I'm working with a Singaporean female artist. Her name is Ila. And again, for us, it's quite an interesting phenomenon to understand the story behind why these sacred art relics are washing up on Singapore's shores. And from there, we've also traced that when they are washed up, they are invisible forces or unseen forces, actually, that create sort of shrines, not in the kind of established way, but makeshift shrines around Singapore. And this is quite an interesting counterpoint, especially when you think about sacred art forms in different contexts, such as, say, in the religious spaces of temples, in spaces such as the museum, and vis-a-vis makeshift shrines that you find around Singapore. So I hope this would culminate. We're working towards an exhibition, and hopefully this will culminate sometime this year as well.
Fantastic. Thank you so much.